All right, I should probably put a trigger warning on this one. Um, this is a video um, I had to make. All right, so first I want to get into the fallen angel. The Bible, it says something about fallen angels, and in a sense, that's accurate. We are kind of fallen angels because what we really are is we're frequency beings. We're conscious frequency beings of energy and light. And so this material world is energy condensed, light condensed, vibrates slowly and creates matter. And so we're in a state of unity with God, and we come down to this dense world of matter that's low vibrational. But it's not because we did anything bad, it's to learn and to grow. It's just we're supposed to be here. And we chose to be here, believe it or not. So we fall into this world of matter from energy, from frequency, and we drop down in frequency to this low vibrational world. And we forget. A part of coming here is to forget. So we're in this state of we are in the delusion of separation. And we're in these biological suits, our avatars. And we identify with the suit out of ignorance because we forgot. And then we get conditioned by religion. And so in society, and there's biological conditioning too. That's just part of being here into this low. That's basically what Christians mean when they say the world belongs to the devil, is because it's low frequency. It's a low frequency world. And we are in the delusion of separation. And we identify with the body and the thoughts. We're in a state of, we're completely taken over by the ego mind identity. And we think we're our thoughts, and we think we're our body. And this gets us to vibrate at a low frequency. Okay. So now I'm going to get into like original sin. Christian fundamentalism teaches that Adam and Eve disobeyed God and all this stuff, and they give these sins. Okay. So first I want to understand, I'll get into lust. Lust is one of the sins. Okay. Lust belongs to the body. Lust belongs to the body. Lust, the purpose of lust, because everything serves us. It's not here by accident. There's nothing. Everything, reality is perfect. So lust, the point of lust, which scientists understand this, is so we can procreate. The biological human it's survival. There's nothing bad about it. It just is. Saying it's bad is just a judgment where you're not supposed to judge. And so it's just a product of the biological evolution of the material earth. That's all it is. So judging it and feeling guilt and shame that was just to create it by the false light to keep us in a lower frequency. Because when you fear and guilt, so you feel shame for the so-called sins, they're just a product of your biology, so it's just a product of I'm not saying you want to be completely consumed by these things, because they are low frequency, right? They belong to the earth. What you are, what you truly are, the I am, the frequency is not attached to lust or anything like that. See, people get attached to lust, which the ego gets attached to lust because of the pleasure of it. It feels great. So the ego gets attached to lust, and then attachment is low frequency. So these things, these sins, in a sense, they are not bad, but they'll keep you at a low frequency if you're attached to them, right? So that's all. It's just like you don't want to be too addicted to these things because they're low frequency. And so you want to identify with who you truly are, and that is energy, the I am. Okay, so that's the purpose of lust. And getting attachment to anything is low frequency. So you don't want to get attached to low frequency things because you'll attract low frequency, and you want to attract high frequency. Unless it's your just purpose to be here to attract low frequency, and that's good, all good. It's just all learning. So there's no judgment. But feeling guilty about your lust when it's just a product of your human biology is just like, that's trash. And that'll just keep you in a low frequency, and then you'll attract all the demons and all the negative things when you're in a vibration of guilt and shame. That's ridiculous to feel guilt and shame over natural biological processes that serve you, that you need if you want to have kids, if you want to, you know what I mean? That's how ridiculous and ignorant a lot of the teachings of Christian fundamentalism are, and toxic. And that's why people think I'm being mean when I criticize Christian fundamentalism, but they don't understand, how toxic it can be. Okay, so now I also want to get into greed. All right. Greed is a product of the ego mind identity that always feels incomplete because it identifies with the body and it lives in separation. So greed is a product of the ego mind identity, the body, what we're not, what we think we are in this low frequency reality. And so we're constantly trying to fill the void of incompleteness, and the ego can never do that. So nothing is ever enough. So it can get greedy with anything, money, materialism, and it doesn't realize that it's spirit. So it's always using these materialism and pleasures to fill that void, but that's the body. The body is always seeking. It's always greedy. But what you really are is spirit. And so once you detach from the ego mind identity and you're more aligned with spirit, that all that greed that belongs to the matrix, the earth. And I really don't even like to call it the matrix because I love the earth, Gaia, all that, but it's just more of like and I believe everything is divine, or I know everything is divine. So the matrix is just to kind of like to help for understanding, to understand the world is kind of like the material world is like a simulation, but not to cheapen it. I don't want you to anybody to cheapen earth or the material. It's just a concept to explain things. Okay, so and that's greed. It's when you're operating from the ego mind identity. It's not, and the body is constantly needing something to feel, because what you really are is perfect, but the ego mind identity doesn't understand that. So it gets wrapped up in greed, right? So, okay. And so, envy, that's another one of the sins. Envy, to be jealous. Now, why jealous is low frequency is because there's no separation. So jealousy comes from the ego mind identity that doesn't know that there's no separation. It doesn't know that it is everything, that the seer and what is seen is one thing. So jealousy, it's not to, like, you shouldn't be in guilt or anything because you're jealous. Jealous is the product of an unawakened mind. Envy, that's a product of an unawakened mind that doesn't know that there's nothing outside of it. So there's no reason to be jealous. You're only being jealous of yourself, right? And anything anybody else has, you can have that. once you become more awakened to who you truly are. So envy belongs to the ego mind identity, which belongs to the matrix, the earth. It's all survival stuff. So it's nothing to demonize, right? So nobody had to come to save you, right? Then, like I said, this is going to trigger some people, but I'm not trying to say what people want to hear. I'm trying to say the truth. And so, yeah, there's no reason for envy. It's nonsense. It's a product of the ego, the person that doesn't know who they are. And gluttony is kind of the same thing. It's just filling that void, that pleasure, that being attached, which attachment is low frequency. You're attached to pleasure. And so I'm not going to get too much into gluttony, but that's what that is. I talk with my hands if you can't tell. Now, wrath, it comes from a place, is another thing, is why it's bad, is because it's low frequency. And when you operate from low frequency, you're going to attract low frequency, and nobody wants to attract low frequency stuff. That's, and so that's why if you want to vibrate high frequency and you want to attract better things and manifest better things, you want to clear all this out. And you can do this with the understanding that I'm giving you, or you giving you, because it's all one thing. You created me in your experience to give you this information. And wrath comes from an unawakened mind that sees everything. It's the product of the human animal that sees in separation, which that's part of this world. That's the illusion, the separation. So the ego falls for the illusion, and so it's angry at everything, and it gets triggered by everything because it doesn't know it is everything. And so it wants to, and that's low frequency. So the more angry you are, the more you're believing in the matrix, the more you're believing in the illusion of separation. And also anger and all that, it has a purpose. It has a biological purpose for us to protect ourselves and for us to give us courage, because a lot of times your anger will give you the courage to say something that you may not have couldn't said without that anger. So anger isn't anything. None of these things are bad. They just are what they are, and they serve us. So looking at anger as bad, that's not beneficial. That just keeps you in and so this is what's so toxic about Christian fundamentalism, is it teaches a bunch of ignorance that keeps you low frequency. And that low frequency makes, it gets you to attract a whole bunch of bullshit and gets you living in ignorance and separation, and attracts demons and all type of or dark astral entities and just misery for you. So it's a lot of religion is in, of course, they teach you that God is outside of you and all that. And then, and you have to ask for forgiveness for, normal biological things, instead of, they could create understanding. So you can understand these things, and then you can transcend them more. They're going to be there because they're part of the matrix. So they're always going to, but that's why you need detachment. So they're a product of the matrix, and so in duality is illusion, and so that's another thing that is extremely toxic about religions. Sloth, because that's another sin. Okay, so sloth is usually a product of trauma, people depressed, people low frequency, that they have no energy. When I was in like a sloth state, I was extremely traumatized, and so I had no energy. I had astral entities sucking me of all my energy. You know what I mean? I had a very low self-esteem. I very unconscious, very identified with the ego, giving all my focus to a bunch of toxicity, right? Eating terrible. So all these are a product. Sloth comes from an awakened mind, a person that's really attached to a bunch of stuff and that is draining their energy. So none of these things should be judged. Now they are toxic because they're low frequency, and you want to identify with your true identity, which is a divine fractal of God. And you want the truth of unity, of oneness. And these truths will bring you to a high frequency. You'll have more energy, and you won't be operating from these low frequency states that we call that or that fundamentalists call sins. And they teach children that these things are going to get you, just normal things, a part of being a human, are going to send you to hell for eternity. Now they will create a hell in a sense, right? Like low frequency behavior, the more you're addicted to low frequency behavior, the more your outer reality is going to be something that you don't prefer. The more you learn to vibrate high frequency, which is things like Jesus' teachings, they've destroyed his teachings. They just completely destroyed his teachings. But the more you operate from high frequencies like oneness, compassion, love, gratitude, and giving and all that stuff. Why is giving good? Because the seer and the sea is one. The seer and what is seen is one thing. So when you give, I don't care what you're giving. When you give, you do it, because, and it's going to come back to you. You do it from a place of love, because you're given to yourself, and so it's going to come back to you, right? So, Jesus was dropping tons of jewels, but Christian fundamentalism, they don't understand a lot of the things that they're talking about. So these things that you call sin are not going to send you to all eternity because you do them. They're normal processes of being a human being, being in this low frequency reality. You know what I mean? When you die, you just shed your biology, your avatar, and you become unionized with God. And that's another thing with the fear of death is ridiculous. And then you go from there into the next experience where you can learn more of who you are. So, so I have a lot of family and friends that are Christian. So I love talking about this stuff, but it's also kind of like, I know I'm going to trigger some people, but it has to be said. It has to be said. So, so nobody had to come and save you. You know what I mean? You're not a victim. You're the creator of your reality. So nobody had to come and save you from, and now Jesus was of service. And so he was teaching you things that will help you lift you to a higher vibration. So in a sense, you could say he's saving you from, but him saving you there's no separation. So, you know what I mean? So, and the waiting for a savior keeps people in a victim mentality. I think a lot of people talk about victim mentality, but I don't think anything keeps people in a victim mentality more than Christianity, Christian fundamentalism that teaches you need to be saved. You know what I mean? And keeps people waiting for something outside of them. You know what I mean? When there's nothing outside of you. So original sin is, at least the way it's given to people, is nonsense, and we need the truth, right? Even if it triggers people, you know what I mean? And so this video isn't going to be for everybody, by any means. And this video is not trying to get you to not be Christian, fundamentalism, whatever. It's just to give the truth. and you do with it with what you want. Like, I don't care. I'm not that trying to get people to believe what you believe. That's ego, and I used to be in that, but now I don't care. And also it's there's no, I'm not coming from a place of hate with this. You know what I'm saying? So, like I say, I love Christian fundamentalism. Uh, it was a big catalyst for me. You know what I mean? It caused me a lot of trauma, but it was a great catalyst for me. So yeah, you don't need to feel guilty for your sins. You don't need to go um, to some priests, and Catholics go to the confessional booth and they confess their sins to some, you know, dude that's probably does, who knows what, how these priests are, these Catholic priests are. So all that is just low frequency behavior. They want to keep you in a state of guilt and fear. You don't have anything to confess to anybody. Like, let that go. That's just your fearful, traumatized, fragmented ego. You know, you don't need to be. You're a divine fractal of God. You don't need to be confessing your sins to anybody. It's just to keep you a slave. That's what they want. They just want to keep you a slave. They want to be able to control you. They want you to identify with the ego, mind, identity in your past experiences. You know what I mean? And all that. It's just a scam. And so you don't need to confess anything, right? To a bunch of priests that don't know what they're talking about, you know. So, all right, that's all. I'm going to torch the Catholic Church later in another video, but this is just all right. Anyway, that's enough. It's a short live. Peace out, y'all. Much love. Thanks for watching.